This is Radar for On the Radar Entertainment Blog with another weekly baseball observation heading into the baseball trade deadline. The Rockies have decided now that Ian Desmond in center field, they're not going to do that anymore. David Dahl's going to play center field. Okay, so they made a big announcement that they're signing Murphy to play first base, so Desmond has to play center field, so Blackman plays right field. It's not like Blackman was, Torrey Hunter in the outfield defensively, but there's definitely a way to keep Blackman in center field and maybe play Desmond in left and Dahl in right field. Because Dahl's not going to win you any Gold Glove in center field either. The only guy on the roster that's good defensively in center field is Raimel Tapia with his speed. So we'll see how this goes second half. And it's unsure if the Rockies are going to make the playoffs because they don't have enough pitching in the bullpen in their rotation. But we'll see how it goes with Dahl in center and Ian Desmond in left. The Phillies, despite having Roman Quinn and Halsey on the roster, they're continuing to play Kingery in center field every day and lead off. I feel like Roman Quinn is the best option to be the leadoff hitter, but also I feel like Halsey and him could be the better option in center field, and you can play Kingery in left field, or it can be an improvement over Maikel Franco as a consistency guy at third base. And then they just got Corey Dickerson, so he's not going to win you any awards in the outfield, even though he did. He's just not the best of the best. So unless you're going to play Harper in center field when Jay Bruce comes back and have Dickerson him in the corners and just have Roman Quinn as the fourth outfielder, maybe. And then when it comes to the Braves, even though Enciarte is back, Acuna's still in a leadoff spot, even though Acuna is not a leadoff hitter. And also, he's playing center field a couple of times a week because they want to get Austin Riley's bat in the lineup. Nick Markakis is on the DL. If you want to get Austin Riley's bat in the lineup and you want Enciarte's Gold Glove defense in center field and his leadoff ability, then play Riley in left field and you play Acuna in right field until Markakis comes back with him in center field. So it would be best if Enciarte's center field and Acuna's in right field. But when Markakis comes back, you're going to have this problem, especially as a leading team in the division. You're going to figure out what's the best outfield alignment. And are you going to play Enciarte every day, or are you going to have Enciarte be the guy that comes off the bench in a postseason game for defensive purposes? Now, the Nationals are still batting Adam Beach in second, even though his best value is the leadoff, and I've seen a lot of Geraldo Parra playing first base this week. You have Matt Adams. I know Ryan Zimmerman's hurt, but also Howie Kendrick. Play infielders at first base. Don't play outfielders who have won Gold Gloves at first base. Now, the Dodgers, everybody keeps saying that I've learned this. They're one of the worst defensive teams in baseball, and I'm like, really? A.J. Pollock's a good outfielder, so is Alex Verdugo, so is Jack Peterson, and Cody Bellinger has all those outfield assists, and he's made great plays in right field. Turner has played well defensively at third base. Seager is not that bad at shortstop, and they played a lot of Kiki Hernandez and Chris Taylor second base this year, and they're natural-born shortstops, and they played a lot of Freeze and Muncy now, and Beatty at first base, so you got first basemen there. But then, as I've said all along the last couple of weeks to a month, why is Jack Peterson playing first base? He doesn't know what he's doing. He's made horrible throws to get the runners out at home plate. He's not had the best footwork at first base, dropped some balls, things like that. Next month, he made some good plays in the All-Star game at second base, but he's not a permanent solution at second base. And I've seen late in games, I've seen Russell Martin at third base again. Yeah, not a third baseman. And if you're going to put Martin in the infield late in the game, you want him to play first base and not third base. Okay? And then, as I told you, Bellinger's still a first baseman playing right field, and Beatty's still a first baseman playing left field. Now, I know you want to get Pollock because you spend all that money on him, and you want to get Verdugo in the lineup, and you want to get Bellinger in the lineup. That's fine. You can do that. But you got to work out a system where Jack Peterson's playing the outfield and not playing first base. If you want to play the youngster Beatty every day or get him enough at bats with David Freese injured, go ahead, do him. But play him at first base. Don't play him in the outfield and play Jack Peterson at first base. You're just insulting my intelligence. And they also picked Tyler White up, who has played some second base, and he's played some third base and left field in his career, but he's a big man. He's not good defensively as a first baseman. So adding him to what's already a crowded situation is not the best idea. Now, I know they got Negron from the Mariners, but he is replacing Taylor and Kiki Hernandez, who's injured. So if you play him on second base, you want to have Negron come in and play second base late in the game. He's not going to be a solution to play every day, or even getting him at bats in the outfield when you have too many outfielders. And they just acquired also Jed Jerko, and it's like, okay, he's injured right now, and Jed Jerko plays first base third base and second base, and you already have all that clogging there. He maybe have more career innings at second base than a Max Muncy, but you already have all that clog work. Now the Jays, they're playing Eric Sogard in right field. Now that he's traded, that's one less veteran on their team. They didn't trade Justin Smoak, so they still got to worry about him. Now Brandon Drury, I've seen him play first base, third base, and outfield this week. I've seen Freddie Galvis DH, which is a waste of time when you want to DH Gurriel, Grichuk, maybe everyday Guerrero or Drury or Smoak, but no, it's DH Freddie Galvis. And Randall Grichuk playing center field. And Gurriel. So it looks like with Bichetti and Biggio up, they want to play them every day with Guerrero at second base, shortstop, and third base. That was your opportunity to trade Galvis. He's a useful piece to somebody. I guess we don't want him. There was no really trade value for him. And it looks like that experiment of Gurriel in left field is going to stick because if they want Bichette and they want Biggio and they want Guerrero to play in the infield and they still have Rowdy Tellez and Justin Smoak and Brandon Drury, there's really nowhere to put Gurriel. Now, going into next year, maybe he becomes the shortstop and Biggio or Bichette move to third base or something. Depends on what happens. And then the Rays, there's no reason to bat Choi or d'Arnaud leadoff, and there's no reason to play d'Arnaud first base, and you have too many first base options, or do you even have Choi on your roster? And I know Kevin Kiermaier got hurt for a bit, and Herrera was in the minor leagues when it happened, but Tommy Pham and Austin Meadows are both natural-born center fielders, so there should be any possibility that Avi Garcia, who's not great defensively in right field and he's okay in left field, should be ever playing center field. And again, if Snell and Glasnow are out and it's just Charlie Morton, why are you not starting Jalen Beeks or Faria when they could start for you? I know you have that whole opener thing, but that's just silly. And then the Rays traded Hunter Wood. He's been pretty good for them in the bullpen and Ryan Stanek. They traded two of their good relief pitchers. And they got rid of Christian Royal because they had an infield logjam. But Matt Duffy's doesn't stay healthy all the time. And all they really got in that trade is, in that first trade for Christian, where they got rid of Royal and Wood, they got an outfielder and future consideration. That's not really helpful, the Rays. You're trying to be a playoff team. If you're trying to be a playoff team, you trade Wood and Stanek, it doesn't really help your bullpen when you're a team based on your bullpen. Marlins, man. Stop playing Brian Anderson and Garrett Cooper in the outfield. I know your outfield has been great this year. That's why Granderson's played a lot. You're playing Puello, who is bounced around. Harold Ramirez, who's not a great center fielder, who's played a lot of center field. And Brinson hasn't worked out. But you have all these outfielders you got and all the trades you made of all the big players you traded. You're not going anywhere. Try them. And if you even say, well, try Miguel Rojas in the outfield because he's a utility player, or Yadiel Rivera, that's fine. Utility players in the outfield, that's only fine because they're not everyday players. Anderson and Cooper could be like everyday players for you, but you have Prado and you Walker and Castro. There's not enough room for everybody. So, again, don't know what they're doing. Now, the Yankees have played a lot of DJ Mayu at first base and third base and leading off, and Judge still batting second. And with Brett Gardner injured, if Hicks doesn't play, Cameron Maybin, who's back from the DL, should only be the guy getting at bats in center field. Mike Toshman's not a great outfielder to begin with. And then the Pirates, before they traded Dickerson, has seen leading off some days. Yeah, that's not what he does. And then the Cubs have seen Contreras lead off or bat second. Hayward's leading off. Bryant's still, playing the outfield some days. Hayward's now playing center field. And now that they got Nick Castellanos, it's like the Carlo Gonzalez experiment they had, where they play a guy for his bat in right field, and Hayward's got to play center field, and then sometimes they play Bryant for his bat in the outfield. I don't know. David Ross mentioned on ESPN this week that maybe they'll play Castellanos back at third base and play Bryant in the outfield because Bryant's more of an athlete and he's more athletic. That sounds good in theory, but again, Bryant shouldn't be in the outfield. He and Rizzo and Baez, those are the three guys, and Church, fourth guy. Don't play them out of position. Just keep them where they are. Now, they got a hole at second base, and I've been saying that maybe you should play Starlin Castro. Not Starlin Castro. Excuse me. Addison Russell every day as shortstop and play Baez at second base. But then people would say you're making a hole at shortstop. But Russell's defense at shortstop is really good. So that would be a way to fill the hole. But for now, their hole is at second base because Descalso's injured and he's been scuffling and Zobrist is out there. They really don't have a good option at second base. So that's more of an issue than the outfield. But here's the thing. If they got Castellanos and they got Almora in the outfield, maybe Ian Happ should go back to second base. See if he can fill that hole at second base and in the leadoff spot as well. Now, the White Sox, Yadier Garcia is not the world's greatest outfielder in terms of his arm. Yeah, he's improved from last year making mistakes, but based on his speed if Cordell, Tilson, or Engel are not on the roster, he should be playing left field as much as possible because the Sox don't have a DH, so Eli can ease himself back in and DH. Garcia should not be playing right field. But the White Sox really don't have an outfield because they had so many options in center field and right field that aren't that great, and they only have Eloy as a future term guy in the outfield. Now the Twins, anytime that CJ Cron is injured or day off, or Nelson Cruz is a day off and they're not DH and playing first base, just do that with Sano. Because you have Mauro Gonzalez, and you have Andre Anza, and you got Erez. Those are three infielders who can field their positions. You can play them anytime at third base and just have Sano play first base or DH. But they don't do that. But what they do is they play Erez, they play Andre Anza, and they play Gonzalez in the outfield. No need for Jay Cave, even though Rosario's not a great outfielder and Buxton can't stay healthy, and Kepler is a good enough center fielder, but he's a better right fielder. Now, the Indians are still batting Mike Lindor leading off some games, which I said I think they should fix that. And they had Mike Freeman playing third base and shortstop when he's been a first base most of his career, and he batted third and base. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. The Angels still are batting Mike Trout second, despite wanting to have a middle of the lineup that should be Trout, Pujols, Upton, and Ohtani or Bullard. It hasn't been like that all season. It's been a bunch of nobodies. And then you got Trevor Cahill pitching at a bullpen when the Angels have no starting pitching. No starting pitching whatsoever. Release Matt Harvey. Heaney's injured. The untimely passing of Tyler Skaggs. He's the only guy left. That is not a good thing. And they're playing a natural-born first baseman at third base when they can just play Fletcher every day at third base. Now, the Orioles, every week possible they can, they try to play Trey Mancini second in the lineup as many times as possible, and him in right field and Santana in center field. They went and got Keon Broxton. That didn't work out. They got Dwight Smith Jr., who played really well at the beginning of the season, but he's playing a lot of left. He got hurt. And they also played Wilkerson in center field. Wilkerson in center field, that's fine. Smith in center field, that's what they should be doing. And maybe play, Mancini in left field. Because Trumbull's missed the whole entire year. Chris Davis hasn't been good. They sent Rio Ruiz down. It's only the Nunez guy who is actually been okay productively that it could push Mancini out of the first base DH spot, but Mancini should always be playing first base DH, and if he has to play the outfield, that should be left field. And it's a waste of time to DH Jonathan VR as well. It's so stupid. The Giants have loved batting Brandon Belt second or lead off and Buster Posey second. Belt should be in the middle of the lineup, so should be Posey. Now the Mariners, they're playing this Nola guy second base when they got Shed Long, they got Beckham, they got Dylan Moore. All those guys should be playing second base if D. Gordon is injured, and the left side of the infield is set with Seager and Crawford. You can give Nola bats at first base or DH because Vogelback's the only guy that does that. At the same time, there should be no Beckham or Moore in the outfield. They should be playing second base. Like, when D. Gordon comes back, they play him in the outfield with Malik Smith and Domingo Santana, maybe, instead of playing infielders in the outfield. And they're doing this opener thing when they have these starting pitchers on the roster, but whatever. It's just like, yeah, we have LeBlanc and we have Malone, and we have all these guys, but we're going to have openers. And then the guys that are openers only go one inning, but reality, those openers are guys who have started in their major league career before. And then you got the Padres, who, again, let's play Will Myers in center field. Now, let's try to embarrass him as well. Silly. It's really silly what they've been doing. And I've seen Greg Garcia also play the outfield. It's like, come on. Don't play infielders in the outfield as well. It's bad enough. And then the Royals, they decided we're going to go back to having Chester Cuthbert and O'Hearn on the roster. And we had Lucas Duda at a point, but now Lucas Duda's gone. But we also have Bubba Starling up. And he and Billy Hamilton and Alex Gordon got to all get at bats. What Merrifield's playing some more second base. So let's put Hunter Dozier in the outfield, even though he's an infielder by trade, so we can DH Soler. No, DH Dozier or O'Hearn or Cuthbert, and let Dozier play third base or even first base or DH. No. Let's put him in the outfield where he doesn't belong. And then the Reds, they've been playing Farmer at second base, even though they have so many second basemen on the roster. And I don't understand this. Votto is your best hitter. Maybe he sees more pitches batting second. But when I see Phillip Ervin batting cleanup and a bunch of backups or guys who are known only for their defense batting fourth, fifth, and sixth, I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Phillip Ervin maybe should get an opportunity to lead off so Jesse Winker can get out of the leadoff spot and Mick Senzel can bat second. And then the Astros, they played Yordan Alvarez in the outfield, and it's just like, there's no need. He should play first base or DH. And now if you do interleague, that's one thing, but you can always give Gurriel the day off or something like that, okay? And Brantley should not be playing right field. He's much better suited in left field. Now, the Astros made no sense this year as well. They decided that Chirinos is the guy, even though he's a backup, and they didn't want to play Maldonado all this money. Then they go out and say, you know what? We're going to trade Max Stassi away to the Angels so we can get ourselves 2 minor league outfielders we've never heard of. We trade them to the Angels. Okay? Then they go out and get Maldonado from the Cubs, who the Cubs only got from the Royals because Contreras was injured. When the Astros could have had the whole entire year, they didn't have to trade anything. They didn't have to give anything up for Maldonado. Okay? They could have just had him the whole entire season. No. Let's go with a backup to start the year has been okay and started sometimes his career. For another backup like Maldonado's only starting because Perez was out for the year and Contreras was injured. But yeah, so all it took for them was to trade Tony Kemp. Now, Tony Kemp is blocked by Altuve, so he's played a lot of outfield. But he's come up with clutch plays defensively, stealing bases. He's a great contact hitter. He was on the team when they won the World Series. He's a very useful piece. Now the Cubs got him, and it only cost the Cubs Maldonado, who they don't need. And the Astros desperately wanted Maldonado at the beginning of the season, so now they have 2 backups that they can combine. So there's that. And then they also traded Derek Fisher because there's no room in the outfield for him. So that was a good idea at the same time. Now then, the A's, on the other hand, I don't know what they're doing. Yes, their best outfielder, Laureano, is injured, and Piscotty is their best offensive outfielder, and he's injured. But there's no need to play Cannon center field and Chad Pinn in right field when Robbie Grossman is a natural-born center fielder. And they called up Nick Martini, who's an outfielder too. He's a young outfielder. Between Martini and Grossman, one of them should play in center field. It's understandable to play Cannon in the corner spots, but not in center field. And even Franklin Barreto, they tried him in the center field in the minor leagues, and he's got the versatility to do that as a shortstop. And so does Jurickson Profar when he's in Texas playing the outfield as a shortstop. Cannon's a first baseman who I understood that he played center field the last couple of years because there were so many injuries and didn't have anybody. But you got Laureano, you got Fowler in the minor leagues, you got Martini, you got Sky Bolt, you got so many guys. And Chad Pinder, I know you want to get his bat in the lineup because you know you have a hole right now, and at second base, Profar hasn't hit that well, and Barreto hasn't lived up to his potential. But that was your mistake in the first place for trading for Profar when he could have started Barreto or Pinder. Now the Tigers, I've seen them play Candelario first base. The only reason why Nick Castellanos moved to right field was because they thought the Candelario was going to be this amazing baseball player, and instead of trying him at second base, shortstop, or even first base or in the outfield, because he didn't have a position with the Cubs, they played him at third base, and that took Castellanos to the outfield. If you're going to just play him at first base, you just come reversing what you did with Castellanos. Castellanos' bat would have been more valuable if he was playing third base or even first base than as an outfielder. And then the Cardinals, they're playing Jair Munoz in the outfield because Dexter Fowler's injured, and I don't know what's up with O'Neill and Bader. One's up and one's down. And Jose Martinez is not our world's greatest defensive outfielder to begin with. That at the same time, that Jair Munoz, in so many highlights, he makes bad plays in center field and bad plays in left field. And I can't get upset at him for that because he's really a shortstop playing the outfield. But the Cardinals are like, you know what? Harrison and Bader and Martinez and whatever and Fowler, we're just going to go with Munoz in the outfield to get his bat. And he's just not a great outfielder. So they're ruining that way. And the Red Sox, if you're going to give JBJ the day off, then why don't you play Mookie Betts in center field? Benintendi, he could play center field, but he's not the best. And then they play Sam Travis in left field when he's a first baseman too. You're better off playing JD Martinez in left field than DHing Sam Travis. And then the Brewers, there's no reason whatsoever to have Yasmani Grandal lead off when you have Lorenzo Cain. Now then, the baseball trade deadline just happened, and there were some interesting trades. So the first trade was the Red Sox saying, we're going to need a starting pitcher because Eovaldi was injured, but he's now going to be in the bullpen. They traded for Andrew Cashner. They didn't get a top of their rotation because they thought Price, Purcell, and Sale was good enough. They didn't go out and get a closer. So there they got Andrew Cashner. But not getting a closer, that's going to come back to haunt the Red Sox. Even if Eovaldi becomes the closer and Matt Barnes solidifies the eighth inning like he had been doing, a workman pitch as well, and Heath Hembree is good in the bullpen, they didn't get themselves a good closer. They did not. Now the A's were smart. They traded for Tanner Roark and Homer Bailey and Jake Diekman. because their rotation was the issue this year. Blake Trinan hasn't pitched well as the closer. Rodney didn't work out, and so far, Soria hasn't worked out either. So the veteran relievers that they signed or traded for in the last year or two to help them, and their all-star closer from last year hasn't pitched well enough. And outside of Brett Anderson and Mike Fiers, the rest of the rotation has not been good because they lost, Frankie Montez for the year for steroids, and all their good pitchers are injured. That getting Homer Bailey, because he's shown he was healthy in Kansas City, Jake Diekman, who showed that he's still a good relief pitcher to begin with, that he's a good lefty specialist too, and getting Tanner Roark, who has always been a great back-end starter for Washington, but Washington unloaded him so they can have room for Patrick Corbin and Anibal Sanchez, that he pitched well enough for the Reds this year, that quietly the A's, who are trying to make the playoffs, with Brett Anderson, Mike Fiers, Homer Bailey, and Tanner Roark, they could do it again like last year when they had a bunch of veteran guys doing it. And Jake Diekman helps the bullpen because of what's happening with the relievers. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the Royals only signed Maldonado because Tommy John happened to Perez, and they needed somebody. And the Astros didn't want to pay that much money for him, so then the Royals had him. Then the Cubs lost Contreras for a month, and they needed a catcher, so they traded for Martin Maldonado. But what they did, the Cubs made a mistake, is trade up Montgomery, who, in every team he's been on, he's never got a full opportunity to start, so he's also been like a spot starter or relief pitcher. The Cubs' bullpen hasn't been that great this year. The rotation's had some injury. They just said, what, Mike Montgomery, we're going to trade you away from Maldonado because we need him. Then when Contreras comes back, they're like, you know what, we don't need him, but then you already gave up Montgomery. Now, at least the Cubs got themselves Tony Kemp, who could solidify second base. He could also maybe be the leadoff hitter. He can also get some spot starts in center field or left field, but still, leadoff hitting and second base is what they needed. The Yankees got Terrence Gore like in a minor trade, and with the fact that Hicks and Gardner, Judge and Stanton and Babin have all been injured this year, he may come into play in the postseason as a pinch runner or defensive replacement. So that was a good idea by them. Now the Giants unloaded so many relievers. Derek Holland went to the Cubs, so the Cubs got himself Holland. Now they're not going to use Holland as starter because when the Cubs healthy rotation is good enough that they don't need him, that he could be a left-handed pitcher out of the bullpen. So that was a good move by them. The Giants, they're not sure if they were going to be sellers or buyers because the way that they played so well this past month, and it's Bochy's last year, Bumgarner's a franchise player. So they traded Derek Holland, so because they just wanted to get rid of him. They also traded Drew Pomeranz, another starting pitcher acquisition they got that didn't work out as a starter, and they made him reliever as well. They traded also Melanson, a closer acquisition they signed, who was horrible and injured, but he's been picking up lately. They got rid of him. Dyson was horrible in Texas after being very good. Then the Giants got him, and he was horrible. Then back again, he's been up and down. And he helped out when Melanson was horrible, but they traded Dyson, Melanson, Drew Pomeranz, and Derek Holland. They got rid of all these relief pitchers, but they didn't trade Bumgarner, and they didn't trade Will Smith or Tony Watson. It's like, okay, you didn't trade two of your best relievers and your starting pitcher. You didn't trade Sandoval, and you didn't trade anybody else. But you said, you know what, we're going to trade all of our relief pitchers basically, but we're going for it. It makes no sense. Now, the Twins acquiring Dyson and Sergio Romo helps them out because every single relief pitcher the Twins have tried this year has not worked out for them whatsoever. They kind of have that hole in the bullpen because they traded Kinsler a couple years ago to Nationals, and it just hasn't worked out for them. And they haven't really given Trevor May the opportunity to be the closer, so getting Romo and Sam Dyson helps them because their bullpen's been the biggest issue for them. So that's going to help them. So they did pretty good. They got themselves two veteran relief pitchers to pitch the 8th and 9th inning. That will help them try to hold off the Indians, but it's going to come down to, is their starting pitching going to match up with Cleveland's starting pitching, the Astros, the Yankees, Red Sox, or Rays? And I really don't know if it's going to match up. Now, a head-scratching trade was the Mets trading for Stroman, but not trading Wheeler or Syndergaard or Matz or Diaz. So it's a move because the Mets think they could still be in contention. They're not. They're going to have him next year. Next year, they're going to have this amazing rotation because even with Wheeler going to be a free agent, it's still going to be Syndergaard, Matz, DeGrom, and Stroman. It's still going to be very, very good. And they traded two pitching prospects, but you thought they were going to get him back. So right now, the fact that the Mets only made one move, which was acquiring Stroman's a great pitcher, so they would get an A for getting him. But it made no sense because they kept the other starting pitchers, one who's going to be free agent and one whose value is very high, and they didn't trade their closer or any of their veteran players like Ramos or Frazier. So it's a little bit questionable, but getting Stroman to be in rotation with the other three guys, oh, that's an amazing rotation. And in order to make room for Stroman, they traded Vargas. So the Phillies are like, you know what? We have Arrieta and we have Nola, but the other three spots in the rotation have gone from guys that we've developed ourselves, got in other trades and brought up. So all these young guys, and the guys have been injured or underdeveloping. So that turned out to be the rotation having 3 holes in it. They decided that we just need to get somebody. So they got Vargas, and they got Dan Straley, and they got Drew Smyly. So they got themselves guys who at one point Straley was very good. Drew Smyly was good till he got hurt, and Vargas has been up and down his whole career, but it's had some all-star years. So they're patching their rotation in with 3 veterans that have been teams just didn't want anymore. Now the Pirates, they made a move. They traded Jordan Lyles and Corey Dickerson. So the Brewers traded for Lyles last year when he was on the Padres. They traded him for this year. Getting him and Pomerantz is interesting because of all the injuries they've had to the rotation. So the Brewers try to hold off the Cardinals, whose rotation is worse off than them. The rotation is probably not as good as the Cubs because on paper, Lester, Cole Hamels, and Yu Darvish, and Kyle Hendricks, and Quintana are better than Gio Gonzalez, Zach Davies, Jimmy Nelson, Chase Anderson, Cecina, and Brandon Woodruff. But it's like, getting Lyles and Pomerantz will help. I don't know if they're going to start Pomerantz, but that was good. So getting Lyles was a good idea. They just should have re-signed him beforehand. The Cubs got David Phelps. David Phelps at one point was one of the best relief pitchers after being a failed reliever, but he's been injured. But getting him and Derek Collins is what they get in their bullpen. They didn't really need to make a major move in the bullpen because they already got Kimbrel. He's the major move. They're just getting Holland as a lefty, and they're getting Phelps, who's been very good. The thing is, they shipped out Carl Edwards Jr., and the Padres are not even using him. He's in the minor league. So basically, Edwards is gone, and they have Phelps, and they have they have Holland, and they got Kimbrel. So they improved their bullpen that way. Now the Rangers getting Chris Martin, unknown pitcher that's pitched well for the Rangers, who have been surprising this year, for a starting pitcher in their system who may not even become a starting pitcher. Good idea. They got themselves, as I said, Mark Melancon from the Giants, who has been not that great of a contract and player for the Giants, but he's been pitching well. And they got Shane Green, who's been coming an all-star caliber closer for the Tigers the last couple of years. The Braves needed a closer. They got one. They needed setup man. They got Martin, and they got Melancon, who used to be a closer. The issue was that all the veteran pitchers the Braves had this year, they've gotten hurt, so they got rid of them. And Orlando Vizcaino, who has been their closer, but he hasn't stayed healthy, they traded him to Seattle to get Swarzak because they needed a veteran relief pitcher who can actually pitch because Vizcaino's been hurt. So their bullpen hasn't gone the way they're supposed to be, with the closer being hurt for after the whole year, the veterans not really working, the Johnny Venters, the Darren O'Day, none of these guys worked out for them. So that's why they needed just a rebrand of their bullpen, because getting Keuchel helps their rotation because Turan, Fultonevich, and Gosman haven't been the best, but the rookies, the two young rookie pitchers have been great. So they fixed their problems because when they're healthy, they have the best team in the National League East right now. And now a trade that happened the day before the deadline that obviously made absolutely no sense is the Indians. I said they should be buyers or sellers, and I was right. They bought and they sold. They sold Bauer at the highest value they possibly could, but he didn't go to an American League team, so they didn't have to face him, and he didn't go to the Cardinals who needed a pitcher. He didn't go to the Brewers, who could have used an upgrade in the rotation. He didn't go to the Phillies to need an upgraded rotation, or maybe Atlanta, the Dodgers maybe. He didn't go to the Diamondbacks or the or the Rockies, or the Giants. He went to the Reds. Now you're like, why did the Reds do this? It absolutely makes no sense. And it did not make any sense, because it really did not. The whole trade did not make any sense. It made no sense, because here's the trade. The Reds get Bauer, but they trade away a left-handed pitcher named Scott Moss. He's a minor league pitcher. They trade him away to the Indians. So the Indians get Moss. So the Reds say, here, Indians, we'll give you a left-handed young pitcher for Bauer. Then they said, to make this a three-way trade to help Cleveland win this trade, we're going to carry Taylor Trammell, who was the MVP of the Features game last year and was in it this year, to the Padres. So instead of, we have a hole in center field because Nick Senzel is the second baseman playing the outfield, and Schebler didn't work out, and Matt Kemp didn't work out, and they just traded Puig in this trade itself. So Puig's gone either, so they've lost. So Schebler's in the minor leagues. Puig traded. Matt Kemp released. Second baseman Senzel playing the outfield. Let's trade our young outfield prospect, Trammell, to San Diego and trade his pitching prospect to the Indians. And we'll give up Puig, who's been pretty good for us as well, just to get Bauer. So basically, all the Reds really got in this trade was Bauer, because the Indians got themselves Franmil Reyes and Puig to fix the outfield right there. They got two corner outfielders to hit home runs. And they got themselves a young pitcher from the Padres. And they also got a young pitcher from the Reds. So the Indians go, we get two young pitchers from the two teams. We get two major league outfielders in Puig and Franmil Reyes. And the Padres also gave up a third base prospect because they don't need him because they have Manny Machado. So the Indians get themselves a third base prospect, two young pitchers prospects, two young pitchers, one young infielder, and they get two starting outfielders for them because their outfield's been horrible. And all they had to do was say, bye-bye, Bauer, you go to the Reds. And then, the Padres go, you know what? We need to get rid of one of the guys, Reyes or Renfroe, so they did. And they don't need a third baseman because of Machado, and they got enough young pitching they can give up Logan Allen. So, what the Padres are saying is, we trade Reyes away, but in the future, Trammell's going to come up. So Trammell replaces whatever we lost in Franmil Reyes. Logan Allen and Victor Nova are extra. So basically, Cleveland won this trade. San Diego was second place. Third place is the Reds. And you're going to say, why? They got Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer's going to be good, but the Reds are not making the playoffs this year. And they're probably not making the playoffs next year because there are three teams way better than them in the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Cardinals. As good as Luis Castillo is, and the fact that they like Sonny Gray, and they have DeStefani, and they got a good bullpen, it's just, Bauer should have gone to a playoff team. Now, the Reds could, in this offseason, flip Bauer to another team and get themselves, 2 to 3 prospects back for him this year. They can also trade him next year and get 1 or 2 prospects maybe at the deadline. So we've seen that the Reds didn't win this trade right now, but they could in the future. Now, the Rays, despite having 2 Low brothers, the second base and first base, and Yanni Diaz, now that Matt Duffy is back and he and Adames are the left side of the infield, and they still got Choi and they got Garcia taking at bats at DH, and they got a set outfield. Let's trade for Aguilar to play first base or DH when, as I said, one Low brother could win Rookie of the Year, another one has been up for them, and I know that Diaz is on the DNL, but when Yanni Diaz comes off the DL, he is going to probably have to play first base because Matt Duffy is going to play third base. So what are you going to do? Aguilar DH? Well, then where's Avi Garcia going to play? The outfield? He's not a center fielder. Unless you make the decision that you're going to play Pham or Meadows in center field and Garcia in left field or right field, and Kiermaier becomes a glorified fourth outfielder in the playoffs, getting Aguilar is not a great deal. Nor was them getting Sogard because, as again, when they got Lowe at second base and they got Wendell, they got all these guys, they're getting Sogard and Aguilar didn't help them. What they needed was to get another veteran pitcher in there because they're missing 2, or to get themselves a real closer. But, they didn't do that. Now, the White Sox didn't trade any of the guys they wanted to. Castillo hasn't worked out because he was hurt. Alonso didn't work out because he didn't produce. Herrera's injured, so he didn't work out. And Irvin Santana was a failed experiment. So who do you trade on the White Sox? You can't trade Jay. He was hurt for most of the year. And the Sox don't have... And Ivan Nova hasn't pitched that great. He's pitched okay. He hasn't been that great either. So the only guys you could trade is Colomé, but the Sox didn't want to trade him. So they traded Nate Jones, who was injured, to the Rangers because the Rangers wanted international bonus money. So I don't understand the Sox just held on to that instead of trading for them. Now the Nationals getting themselves Daniel Hudson. Great trade. He's been good this year. He's a good setup man because their bullpen has not been bad in terms of Doolittle. It's bad about getting to him because they've had to use Rodney and all these other guys, Johnny Ventures, all the guys who other teams just got rid of just to poke holes, to plug the holes. Now they also went on and got Hunter Strickland, who this year been injured, hasn't been that great, but if he's healthy, he can probably turn around. And they got Elias, who's never been a starting pitcher in Major Leagues, to have to give him a chance. Right now, Elias could be a good reliever for them. So the Nationals, like the Braves, got themselves 3 relievers, but at the same time, The Braves' three relievers were better than what the Nationals got. But the Nationals already had a closer, so the Braves were behind on that. And as I said earlier about the Giants trading pitchers like Holland, and they're trading Dyson, and they trade Melanson, the fact that they traded Ray Black and Pomerantz, even though they didn't trade the big fishes, it also as I said, makes no sense. Now the Brewers could say to themselves, Ray Black has been a starter, Pomerantz has been a starter. We could start one of those guys, or we just need relief pitching right now. And the reason I traded the Mauricio Dubon guys was because they have Shaw, they have Arcia, and they have Keston Hiura, and they have Moustakas, and they have Thames. So they didn't need the infielders, so that's what they did. Now the Marlins said, we're going to get into the trade deadline. We're not going to trade Granderson. We're not going to trade Prado. We're not going to trade Walker. We're not going to play Castro. We're not going to trade that many people. They traded Romo, so they did that. But that was a couple of days ago. They said, we'll trade Romo, and that helps the Twins out because the Twins needed a closer. But on the actual deadline day, they're like, what am I going to do? So we'll trade this young pitcher named Zach Gallen, who's only pitched a couple months this year, but he's been great. And the Marlins should hold on to him for Jazz Chisholm. So you're saying, why did the Marlins do that? Because on paper, Urena, Alcantara, and Zach Gallen at the same time are three young pitchers that they could have. But because the Marlins are so desperate for young position players, because again they don't know what they're doing, and they don't play Anderson and Riddle in the infield, they got this guy because he's a shortstop. Fine. Now the Diamondbacks got themselves Zach Gallen. That's a great thing, and they got themselves a very young pitcher as well. But the Diamondbacks are in the wild card race, so you think they'd want to keep their veterans. So which is why they get a young guy like Gallen, but then they also get themselves Mike Leake because then they're in the hunt for the playoffs. But then they still traded Zach Greinke away. It's like you didn't trade Robbie Ray, and you didn't trade any of your position players or your relief pitcher because you think you're in the playoff race, but you trade Zach Greinke and you get a young guy in Gallen, and you get Mike Leake as well. But as I said before, the Dodgers get Jed Jerko and they add him to an already crowded infield mix. What it is, it doesn't make sense for the Dodgers because outside of Joe Kelly, who in the bullpen the Dodgers can rely on besides Kenley Jansen, who hasn't been that great this year? Tony Cingrani? Well, he got traded to the Cardinals. The Cardinals get at least a veteran relief pitcher, even though it's really stupid that the Dodgers gave him up. Now the Rockies... Now we thought the Rockies would do stuff, and the Rockies did not do anything really whatsoever. They didn't trade any of their veteran relief pitchers whatsoever, and they didn't trade, any of their veteran position players in the roster. They cut Reynolds and they cut O, so they couldn't trade them, and they didn't trade Chris Iannetta. So I'm surprised the Rockies didn't unload because they're really not going to be in the playoffs this year. And I said about the Diamondbacks. They trade Greinke, but trade Mike Leake. You get Mike Leake to help Zach Greinke in the rotation, but then you get Zach Gallen because you're trying to, build for the future. But so you'd trade David Peralta, you would trade Adam Jones, you would try to trade Wilmer Flores, you try to trade Jake Lamb, you try to trade Alex Avila. But I don't understand what they were doing. It absolutely made no sense. But then the Diamondbacks also said, you know what? We're going to trade John Ryan Murphy too. So they got rid of him as well. Now, I said I touched on the race before trading Hunter Wood and Christian Arroyo, two young guys, and Wood's been good for their bullpen. They traded Ryan Stanek, who's been good for their bullpen as well, and a young pitcher named Jesus Sanchez, to get Trevor Richards and Nick Anderson. Basically, what you're doing is swapping you're getting yourself one young starting pitcher and one young reliever for an established relief pitcher and a young player. You should have held on to Wood and Stanek and Royal, but that's just me. And Trevor Richards may help them right now with the two injuries to their rotation, but Trevor Richards is not going to put them over the top. There were other starting pitchers they could have got, like a Robbie Ray or a Mike Minor. Those two guys push them over the top with Snell and Glasnow injured. Getting Trevor Richards and push them over the top of the rotation, and basically saying Nick Anderson is better than Ryan Stanek and Hunter Wood, not really. And as I touched on earlier with the Cubs, playing Nick Castellanos yesterday in right field and playing Hayward in center. It's a great offensive trade for the Cubs. It's not a great defensive trade for the Cubs because they did this before. playing guys in the outfield who are not great defensively in order to get their bat in the lineup, which pushes Hayward to center field. Tigers had to trade Castellanos. He's going to be a free agent, basically. Essentially, they don't need him anymore. They're not going anywhere. The Tigers got at least 2 young pitchers because they don't have any pitching. That's good for them. But there is no need for the Cubs to have gotten. The Cubs should have got themselves a center fielder or Whit Merrifield or somebody else, and they did not. And then, as I told you about the Giants trading away all the relievers except for Watson and Smith, who are the 2 best, and not trading Madison Bumgarner or Sandoval or somebody, they went and got Scooter Gennett. Why do you need Scooter Gennett? You have Joe Panic. It absolutely makes no sense. And as I just said about the Rays traded Wood and Ryan Stanek and Adam Kolarek. They traded away 3 of their three of their reliable relief pitchers and a young player to get a young starting pitcher and to get another young. They got themselves Trevor Richards and a reliever, but they also traded a minor leaguer, and they traded another minor leaguer to the Giants. So the Giants at least replenished one of the relievers. Many relievers they traded and got themselves Adam Kolarek. But that's not going to. I mean, my bad. So the Dodgers got themselves Adam Kolarek, which helps losing Tony Cingrani. It does not help the Giants whatsoever. But that's what I'm saying. So it makes no sense that the Rays have traded away 3 of their veteran relievers, experienced relievers, and a young player, and the Christian Arroyo. And as I told you before about some of these trades, the Brewers win that Aguilar trade because they didn't need him, because they had Shaw, they got Thames, and they got Moustakas. They don't need to continue playing Moustakas second base now, okay? The Brewers win that trade because now it doesn't matter if they don't start Pomerantz or Black and they just start Jordan Lyles. They can go ahead and start Faria, which will really help them because he didn't really get an opportunity to play where he was. So the biggest disappointments is the Dodgers get themselves Negron, and they get themselves Jed Jerko, and they go get themselves Adam Kolarek. Really small deals. But in order to get Jed Jerko, you traded Cingrani, so getting Kolarek cancels it out. And getting Tyler White and Jed Jerko just add to the crowded infield, even if there's injury to begin with. So the Yankees didn't improve their rotation. They didn't even get a reliever. They didn't even get themselves another outfielder except for Terrence Gore, who's in AAA. The Red Sox think, okay, Nathan Eovaldi will be the closer, and then we got Andrew Cashner for the rotation. We don't need anything. The Red Sox needed to get a relief pitcher, and they did not. The Rays, as I said, traded 3 of their reliable relievers in order to just get maybe 1 or 2 minor leaguers back, and Trevor Richards and a current Marlins reliever. That doesn't really help them. They needed a better starting pitcher than Trevor Richards, okay? And they need a better reliever than what they got They need a better reliever than what they got in the trade, okay? See, Nick Anderson is not a better reliever than the Stanek, Wood, and Kolarek that they traded away. So that makes no sense there. And then getting Sogard and Aguilar clogs up what they already have. The Blue Jays, on their hand, they did a good job trading Stroman and getting 2 pitching prospects. And they traded Sogard away because they had a crowded thing. But they failed to trade Galvis. They failed to trade away Smoke. And because Buchholz has been injured, Clayton Richards has been hurt, and Matt Moore's been hurt, they couldn't really trade the guy. But they did a good job of trading Phelps, who's now healthy, and Daniel Hudson. And they didn't trade Ken Giles, but because they got hurt. But they got rid of 2 veteran position players. I don't know. They got rid of 1 veteran position player and 1 of their starting pitchers. Now they did at the end of the day, besides from trading Hudson and trading the other guy and trading Phelps, is they also traded Biggini. So they traded away 3 veteran relief pitchers and Stroman and Sogard. So they got rid of a bunch of the veterans because their team's, not going anywhere right now. And they got a good haul for Stroman at the same time. They also got themselves Derek Fisher, but again, they keep acquiring all these outfielders and they just never use them. So the Blue Jays were successful in trading Sogard and 3 relievers and Stroman, but they weren't successful in trading away other guys that clogged up the team. And then we go to the Orioles. The Orioles dumped Dan Straley on the Phillies, but they never got the return they wanted. I don't know if they got a great return, and they didn't get a great return for Cashner either. So at the end of the day, you thought the Orioles might trade Michael Givens or Dylan Bundy, and they didn't. And they didn't even trade Trey Mancini because it was probably a high price. And with Trumbo injured, they couldn't trade him. Now the Rangers, they traded Chris Martin. That's okay. They couldn't trade Sean Kelly, and they didn't trade Mike Minor, and they didn't trade Hunter Pence. So, because they were a surprising team. And the Angels getting Max Stassi doesn't really, help anybody whatsoever. And at the same time, basically all they did was getting Max Stassi. That's not really a trade deadline move that the Angels needed to make. They didn't do anything whatsoever that way. So that didn't help them either. The A's, I'm going to give them a lot of credit. They got a veteran relief pitcher and 2 veteran starting pitchers. Small incremental moves will definitely help them out. So that's a positive for them. The Mariners, they got rid of Strickland, who's been injured, and they're paying that money to, and Elias, who they don't even start anyway. And they unloaded Mike Lee because they've been trying to do that for a while. So they got rid of 3 veterans they were trying to get rid of after already getting rid of a bunch of veterans to start the year. They probably want to get rid of more players, but they did not. They didn't unload Tim Beckham like they wanted to, but he fell back down to earth. Then after the team in that division, even though Oakland made good incredible moves, Rangers only made like 1 trade, and the Angels got a backup catcher, and the Mariners got rid of some pitchers on their staff. The biggest winner is the Astros. When you get Zach Greinke and Aaron Sanchez, it's to avoid Garrett Cole leaving, but Verlander, Cole, Greinke, Wade Miley was a great pickup because he pitched well for them, and the Brewers wish they had kept him. And they get Aaron Sanchez, who, when he was healthy and not having blister issues, he was a top rookie. That's the sort of thing. Aaron Sanchez, if he's your 5th starter when the Blue Jays have been expecting to be their ace, their number 2 guy, ooh. He made the All-Star team in 2016, and he was the ERA leader in 2016, man. If he's healthy, and he's your 5th starter, and in the playoffs you may not even need him, just to secure the top seed in the American League, that's what happened with the Astros. They're going to have the best record because even though Lance McCullers is out for the year and they lost Charlie Morton to free agency, and Brad Peacock's now hurt, and Colin McHugh hasn't worked out, that's really good there. And by getting Joe Biggini for their bullpen, that already has Davinsky, Harris, Rodon, Rondon, Hector Rondon, and Joe Smith is back, and he's going to be healthy. And they already have Roberto Osuna. Their bullpen's great. Now with Correa, Altuve, Bregman, Springer, Brantley, and Marisnik, and Gurriel healthy, and they got Maldonado to pair with Chirinos. I know giving up Tony Kemp was not the best thing, but they're the team to beat. And in the American League, the Indians fixed their outfield overnight. Getting Franmil Reyes and Puig fixed the outfield because you could always call up Bowers to play first base or DH to get another bat in the lineup if you don't want to play Naquin or the other guys. And if Lindor and Ramirez plays the way they're supposed to play, and when Carrasco, Kluber, and Zalzar, all 3 are officially activated from the DL, and you pair them with Clevenger and Bieber, there's still a good rotation. And their bullpen's much better than last year with Brad Hand as a closer the whole entire year. The Royals, they traded Homer Bailey, Jake Diekman. They couldn't do it for Duda and Drew Storen and Peralta, and they didn't get to trade Ian Kennedy. But the Royals said, you know what? We traded away Terrence Gore. We got something from the Yankees, whatever it is, small thing. We got something for Jake Diekman from the A's, and then we also traded Homer Bailey to the A's. So it's like, we traded 3 of our veteran players, and we got something back in return. We wanted a lot for Whit Merrifield, but they did that. The Twins got Dyson and Romo. Their bullpen has been an issue all year. very good. They fixed somewhat of the bullpen issue there, so that's going to be a difference. But the Indians' pitching staff and bullpen, when healthy, is much better than the Twins, and the Indians got better in the outfield. The Tigers, they traded away their closer. They got stuff for him. That's going to help them to rebuild by getting prospects for their closer, and they don't have a lot of prospects. They got like pitchers. Traded Castellanos, and they got pitchers in the Castellanos trade. So they got multiple young players for Castellanos and Green that worked out well for them. There really wasn't any other tradable assets because Zimmerman's making all this money. Tyson Ross hasn't pitched in a while. So that's what happened. But yeah, so the Tigers went into the year with saying that we could trade Fulmer. Well, no. Fulmer got hurt to begin with, so he was out for the year. So yeah, so they couldn't trade every single veteran on their team, the Blue Jays, what they wanted to, but they traded Sogard and they traded three of their relief pitchers and they traded Stroman and Sanchez. And I'm not going to call Stroman and Sanchez like old guys in the roster they want to trade, but they accomplished what they wanted to. Now, they couldn't trade Buchholz and they couldn't trade Edwin Jackson. They couldn't trade, Clayton Richard and whatnot, but. And they didn't trade Smoke, and they didn't trade, some of the other guys. But they did okay, and the Tigers could not trade Moore, and they could not trade Fulmer, and they could not trade Tyson Ross. They couldn't trade Jordy Mercer or Josh Harrison, but they did the best. Yeah, so Moore on the Tigers this year, and you didn't get to trade him. And the Blue Jays wanted to play Tapara this year, but he got hurt. Giles' trade didn't work out as well. Yeah, so Clay Buchholz, Tapara, Clayton Richard, and Matt Schumacher, man, those guys, Schumacher and Matt Moore out for the year for both those teams. Fulmer out for the year. Buchholz. The Tigers Blue just had veteran starting pitchers and relief pitchers they wanted to trade, and some position players, and they just couldn't get lucky because they got hurt. And then you get to the White Sox. The White Sox, pretty much every offseason move for a veteran player didn't work out. They couldn't trade them. Injuries, performance, whatever. So they settled on trading Nate Jones, but then they gave international money up to get two minor leaguers. They should have just held on to the money. It just wasn't worth it. Now the Cardinals, who their rotation has not gone the way it's supposed to be. Wainwright's been injured, Walker's been hurt, moving to the bullpen. Martinez hurt, he's in the bullpen. They lost Dakota Hudson for the year. But the fact that they got Cingrani helps their bullpen out. They don't need Jerko because they have Matt Carpenter. But it's disappointing that the Cardinals did not get themselves any starting pitching. Getting Cingrani and Zach Roscoe for your bullpen doesn't do anything. It really does not. The Cubs, on the other hand, getting Castellanos for the outfield helps them very much because they needed a bat. They didn't need him in the bat, but they got him, and they got Tony Kemp, which helps second base and maybe leading off. And they, as I said, got Holland and they got Phelps, and they already got Kimbrel. The Cubs really lucked out in that they got themselves two veteran former starting pitchers to be in their bullpen, and they got themselves Tony Kemp as well by trading away Maldonado, who they don't need. Now, the fact that they traded Montgomery and Edwards is a little surprising, but they didn't really need Edwards at this point. And Montgomery, they'll look back and then go, eh. And the Brewers, they really did help themselves out. They really did. They're trying to bridge the gap. So getting Faria because they got all the injuries and getting Lyles for your rotation and Pomerantz and Black, that worked out to them. That really helped them out as well. And yeah, they traded away Aguilar, but they didn't really need him. The Reds, they come out with Bauer, and that's it. They did unload. They get rid of Puig and Scooter Gennett from the roster, so that helped them clear, position players and money. And they traded Tanner Roark as well, so that they got room in the rotation. But yeah, let's say Tanner Roark, Scooter Gennett, and Puig, and all you really get back is Bauer. because I don't really know how good the prospects the A's gave up to get Rourke are going to be, and whatever the considerations that they're going to get for Scooter Gennett coming off a year where he's mostly injured, it's not going to help them either. And of course, they should have traded Hernandez or Hughes, but they didn't. Zach Duke didn't work out the trade. They didn't trade Lorenzen or Iglesias. They couldn't trade Alex Wood because he was hurt this year. They couldn't trade Schebler because that didn't work out as well, or Matt Kemp. And then you get to the Pirates. Dickerson was going to be a free agent, but he also spent time in the DL. So whatever they get from the Phillies is fine. And whatever they got from the Brewers for Jordan Lyles, it's something, because Lyles also hasn't been healthy this year, but the Pirates' whole entire pitching staff has not been healthy as well. So the Brewers' incremental moves helped. Cardinals, not really. The Cubs' moves helped them a bit, but they already were better than the other teams. And then I said the Mets. Getting Stroman but not trading Wheeler is going to be a free agent is weird. Traded Vargas so they get something for him. They didn't trade Diaz. They didn't trade Frazier. They didn't trade any of the veterans. So that made absolutely no sense. Trade none of the veteran players on your team that you possibly could, because you're not going to make it this year. The Nationals getting 3 relief pitchers so they get the ball to Doolittle is helpful, because the rotation is what their strength is. That helped them. And I said the Braves didn't get a starting pitcher that could have used them, but the 3 relievers they got are better than the Nationals. And when they're fully healthy, compared to the Nationals fully healthy, they're better. The Phillies getting Dickerson because McCutchen and Udo Barrera are out for the year, and Jay Bruce is currently injured. It's helpful now. And at the same time, their closer is out for the year, okay? At the same time, Tommy Hunter and Pat Neshek have not been healthy the whole entire year. So I feel like they should have got themselves actual relief pitching help, and they did not whatsoever. They got themselves Vargas, and they got themselves Dan Straley, and they signed themselves Drew Smiley, who was cut and bounced around. So they're piecing together Smiley, Smiley, and Straley, and Vargas to pencil in their rotation, because they only have 2 good pitchers. So they're trying to patch the holes in their rotation, but their bullpen, losing their 3 best relievers, and they're injured, doesn't help them, and losing 2 of these center field options and Jay Bruce right now. Dickerson is patching the hole up. Those pitchers, they needed a closer or some setup man, and they didn't get it. And without this August thing, it's gonna go back to haunt them. And then the Marlins, as we said, they traded a young pitcher to get a future shortstop that they don't know what's going to happen whatsoever. And all they did was they get themselves Stanek for their bullpen and another young player by trading 2 young players in Anderson and Richard that, again, doesn't make any sense. So they trade away a young pitcher to get a future shortstop. They trade away 2 young pitchers to get a relief pitcher when they're not going anywhere, and a young outfielder. And they traded Sergio Romo, but in this trade, they gave up Romo and 2 players. They gave up a pitcher named Chris Valiamont and a player to be named later just to get 1 player back. So you trade a Romo, but then you give 2 guys with him. Again, it doesn't make any sense. And then when it comes to Los Angeles Dodgers, you get Tyler White and Jed Jerko. Oh, I'm really adding to the crowded mess that you already have at the same time. And yes, you got Adam Kolarek, but you have to give up a young player to get him because you got rid of Cingrani, so it doesn't really help you at that time. Yeah, and then you get Negron. So Negron, Jerko, and White add to you, but you basically replace Cingrani for Kolarek, and it doesn't make any sense there. So they didn't get what they really needed, was to help Jansen and Joe Kelly in the bullpen. They get rid of 1 guy, bring 1 in. The Giants made all these moves, okay? They traded away Dyson and Melanson, who closed games for them. They traded away Black and Pomerantz and Holland, who started and relieved games for them. And they picked up Scooter Gennett. Scooter Gennett's not going to help them when they already have a second baseman, and they didn't trade the big fishes of Watson, Smith, Sandoval, and Madison Bumgarner. They did not do what they were supposed to do. So their chances of making the playoffs are not that great to begin with. So that's the problem. You trade away all these pitchers who are on your team, 3 guys who started games for you. Then you trade away Dyson and you trade away Melanson, and you get Scooter Gennett back in some of these trades. Yeah, not really the optimal trade deadline for the Giants. And when it comes to the Rockies, man, they didn't trade any way of their veteran players whatsoever. And all they did was like a minor deal with the with the Yankees, it doesn't help them. The Rockies don't have enough pitching to make the playoffs, so trade away some of your veteran players. Nope. Okay. And then when it comes to the Arizona Diamondbacks, they trade for Mike Leake, but they trade away Zach Greinke. So are they trying or are they not really trying? Yeah, they get 4 prospects for Greinke, but they traded away a young player to get Mike Leake. And then traded John Ryan Murphy away because you're on unload pieces. You unload Murphy and Greinke were veterans, but you bring in Zach Leake, who's a veteran, and you're trying to win. Then you trade a young player in your system to get Zach Allen, which is fine. It's a swap for one player for the other. They think they're in the playoffs, so get Mike Leake and Zach Allen, but trade away Greinke and Murphy. Okay, fine. Don't trade away Jones. Don't trade away Peralta. Don't trade away Lamb. Don't trade away Flores. Don't trade away Davila. Don't trade away Holly. Don't trade any of your veteran players, but then trade, you know, two of your guys. And then the Padres, man. The Padres did what they had to do. They needed to get rid of Reyes or Renfroe, and they got rid of one of them. And basically, they could travel. So down the line, he may not be the world's best center fielder, but he can play center field if Margot or Cordero or Jankowski in 2 years are not the option, and still have Naylor and Renfroe and Myers. Yeah, they traded away 2 players, but Logan Allen he's expendable, and Victor Nova is not going to play with Manny Machado being there. And they did trade one of their relievers weak to get Edwards. They're not using them. So the real winners of the trade deadline are the Cleveland Indians upgrading their outfield and getting young players. The Twins getting some relief pitchers was helpful. The Tigers getting rid of the 2 guys that could trade, Castellanos and Green. The Royals got rid of Diekman, and they got rid of Homer Bailey. So they got rid of some of the guys they needed to get rid of. The White Sox didn't do anything, and their move was a head scratcher. And then the Yankees didn't do anything. That was silly. The Red Sox got Cashner. That's not really going to help them in the long run. The Rays got rid of 3 relief pitchers and some young players to get some different young players and people in there, and got Sogard and Aguilar to create the logjam. The Orioles didn't trade really anybody except for Cashner and didn't get a lot, and they just got rid of Straley because they just, we got to get rid of him. And the Blue Jays, yeah, they traded Sogard. Yeah, they traded 3 relief pitchers. Yeah, they traded Sanchez and Stroman, their 2 best pitchers, but they didn't get rid of Galvis or Smoke, which is blocking the way of other people. They didn't trade Giles, where they would have got stuff for. And then the Rangers only traded Chris Martin. They didn't trade any of the starters, relievers, or position players. So they got something done, but not a lot of things. The Angels just traded for a backup catcher. They didn't really do anything to help the team for the future or for now. And the Mariners go, we traded 2 relievers and Mike Leake, so we got rid of 3 guys. We're good. We traded a lot of guys earlier in the year, and then you go back to the Astros. They're the winners. They get Sanchez, Biagini, and Zach Greinke, and Maldonado. They really improved their team. They really, really did. The A's getting Homer Bailey, Tanner Roark, and Jake Diekman fixes small holes, and they could be a wildcard team. But the Astros are playing up here, and the Astros are all the way up here, and the A's moves and the Twins moves are down here. It's like, they're not really competition. And the Cubs got, Tony Kemp, Castellanos, Derek Holland, David Phelps. They got some small guys there, and they'll help them, but it's not over-the-top move. The Cardinals got rid of Jerko, but got Cingrani. And it's like, okay. You didn't get any starting pitching. You didn't get any impact relievers. Okay. And the Brewers got themselves some pitchers to help their rotation in the bullpen for now. That's helpful. And for the future in Faria, okay. Aguilar was the big guy to leave and an infield prospect. Okay. The Reds gave away a lot just to get Trevor Bauer, and they're not going anywhere. So they, right now, are the losers at this point. And the Pirates had to trade Dickerson and Lyle, so they did. They didn't trade Vasquez. They didn't trade Kella. They didn't trade Lariano. They couldn't trade a lot of the other pitchers because they're hurt. So they did what they could. They traded away 1 starting pitcher and 1 outfielder. That's all they can do. And the Mets, because they didn't trade Wheeler or any veteran pitchers, their grade is not an A because they gave up prospects against Stroman. Okay? Yeah, they got rid of Vargas. Whoop-de-doo. Okay? The Braves got 3 relief pitchers because they needed relievers, and 2 of them have closer experience, so they win there. I said the Phillies just filled the holes in the rotation with 3 rejects, and Dickerson to fill a hole in the outfield. They didn't get any bullpen help whatsoever. It's not going to put them over the top. The Nationals got 3 relievers just to plug the holes in the bullpen. That's it. So it's helpful for them. The Dodgers swapped 1 reliever out for the other, and they got a bunch of players that just clogged the team. The Rockies didn't really do anything. Diamondbacks got prospects for Greinke, and they got a young pitcher from the Marlins, who the Marlins are dumb enough to trade. But they got Mike Leake And it's just like, okay, makes no sense there. And the Padres, they had to get rid of Reyes, so they did it. They gave up 2 young players essentially to get Trammell. That's fine. They traded away 3 guys to get Trammell. That's fine. So, at the end of the day, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Dodgers, in particular, and the Cardinals, more so, and maybe even the Phillies. None of the moves they made or didn't make is going to come back to haunt them. It looks like the Indians are going to probably pass the Twins up, and the Astros are going to run away with the whole entire league, and it'll be Indians and Astros probably in the playoffs based on the pitching staff. And the Dodgers, even though they didn't do that much, the Braves and Nationals and the Cubs are going to creep up on the Dodgers, and it's not going to be a cakewalk for the Dodgers. So that was a long On the Radar Entertainment blog, weekly baseball observation, and trade deadline recap. Hope you're able to tune in next week. This is Radar.